Thank you, and thank you very much for the kind invitation to speak to you today. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet? Pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. Some quick thank yous. Thank you to Simon and Simon. Simon Crean, as you know, your chair, and Simon Westaway for the kind invitation to speak today. Joel Fitzgibbons, who is the Senior Shadow Minister and Shadow Cabinet Minister for this portfolio, wasn't available, and I'm very happy to sort of step into his very big shoes. You know that Joel is a champion for this sector, not just within the Labor Party caucus, but also within the Parliament. And when he spoke at this conference last year, he spoke about the need for bipartisanship in your sector. In the current political climate, you could probably think that bipartisanship would be a challenge, and you're absolutely right. We may not be able to agree on dual citizenship, for example, but when it comes to policy, when it comes to smart policy, that's where we do need to come together. And in some of my remarks today, I will sort of reflect on the need for bipartisanship when it is based upon good and sound policy. You can't expect political parties to agree to bipartisanship for the sake of bipartisanship or for it to be blind. In this space and in this sector, there has been lots of change. And Simon Crean was right to acknowledge how far you've come in the last 12 months. You know how well your sector is doing, despite the challenges. Employing over 11,000 people, the growth in profits and exports that you've had. But it's not without its challenges. And today in my remarks, I just did want to say a few things about the intersection between politics and policy. Your sector, more than most other sectors, has had to face some political challenges, and those challenges haven't gone away and will continue. So just a quick sort of snapshot and reminder about the political environment that we face. If any of you Google my name, I'll be honest, I'll fall on my sword. Prior to entering politics, we have meat processing in my electorate. I have a pretty progressive electorate. You will see there that I say openly in my local paper, look, I support, strong, tough animal welfare standards. I support the phase out of live exports. That was prior to entering Parliament. That was prior to sitting next to Warren Snowden in the ALP caucus. Many of you probably know Warren quite well. You know his electorate well. Some of you will have properties and businesses in his electorate. He's a champion for your sector inside the caucus and outside the caucus. So as a young person going in at 33 into the caucus with a veteran sitting next to me, he just said, mate, you don't understand. You better shut up and listen. True, honest to God. And for me, that was the beginning of my engagement to really understand your sector. I share that with you just to sort of highlight the political challenge. Most of our MPs are from city-based seats, metro seats. They don't engage with your sector on a day-to-day basis. They will be bombarded by our keyboard warriors, the emails that just flood into the inbox. So your role in engaging with MPs, creating champions within Parliament, is crucial to help people understand your sector more broadly. I've learnt a lot in my few years of being in Parliament. Another example of the intersection of politics and policy. And I share this story because and I've shared it with a few people, because to me it really highlights part of the kind of social and community challenge that we have. In October 2014, we just had another wave of sort of media reports about what was happening in the live export industry. Questions. We don't know whether the images that we were seeing on TV were real or not real. That's the first question. What are the facts behind what we're seeing on Four Corners? So the emails start to flood in, as they usually do. But at the same time, there was an incident in my electorate at the Bendigo Stockyards. The incident, which happened before 1 p.m. on a Sunday, it was a really hot day. A driver had just dumped his stock, his livestock, including there were a dozen dead sheep. It was on the front page of the Bendigo Advertiser. These poor creatures had literally died of heat exhaustion on the road. Of course, the system kicked in. It was investigated. The driver was prosecuted. The farmer was just heartbroken and outraged what had happened to his livestock. But guess what? Even though it was on the front page of the paper, we had that ongoing media, we had the system kick in, not one email, not one phone call. But yet my inbox had been bombarded by the keyboard warriors. My point is that MPs these days are starting to become a bit savvier with the way in which we engage with what comes into our inbox. The more we learn about your sector, the more that we have confidence in the system, the ability that we are able to counter that and say, well, I understand the system, there's integrity within the system, we need to make sure that it's working going forward. I've mentioned the word integrity. Integrity is important, making sure that we have policy and safeguards and a sensible framework that ensures that your sector is buffered going forward. It was mentioned about animal welfare. That's one area where we need to continue a strong safeguard and integrity in a system to ensure that we do have the facts, we do have the ability to understand if there is a concern that's raised, that we are able to prove or disprove. You have security as an industry by having a system with integrity. Labor took a policy to the last election, and I know that some in this room did have concerns about it, and I thought that this was just an opportunity just to talk through what our plan was, not just for your sector, but for animal welfare in general. Because for one of the things for Labor going forward was we need to expand the focus just being on the livestock export industry. Today, animal welfare includes a number of various different areas. So our first goal was to bring them all in under the one banner. So we do believe in establishing an independent office of animal welfare. This office would ultimately have the responsibility for providing advice and oversight from the full spectrum of animal welfare, including all issues such as kangaroo culling, puppy farm, commercial animal husbandry, as well as the livestock export industry. You all know in the last 2 to 3 years the concerns that have been raised in the community about other animal welfare areas, such as puppy farms in Victoria or greyhounds in New South Wales. Having a system that is based upon, that is a framework that is sensible and it is independent of government does allow us to have that integrity going forward. We've also said that in government, Labor would establish an independent Inspector General of Animal Welfare. The Inspector General will be responsible for leading the work established by the Independent Office of Animal Welfare. We've said that we'll renew Australia's animal welfare strategy, work with the states and industry and animal welfare groups to update, renew the Australia's animal welfare strategy. It has to be a partnership. The intersection between our states, our federal government and industry and our animal welfare groups, we need to make sure we constantly are reviewing the policy that we have. We've said we will review the export supply chain assurance system, and a good point to acknowledge your conference coming together in industry and the motion that you passed about LGAP. It is one of the best ways to ensure going forward that you are addressing the future risks in your industry. The SCAS system provides a crucial role in assuring that Australian agricultural producers, their customers and the broader community, that animal welfare is being protected at every stage, from the farm gate to the plate. It does reduce the risk for your sector and gives the community the confidence and the integrity. Sure, we are never going to convince the vegans. That's just a reality. But the policy is about making sure that everyone else absolutely believes in the system and has trust and faith and integrity within the system. What we've also said in one of our final points is to provide more transparency and accountability. Under Labor, the Agricultural Minister will provide regular reports to the Parliament on new and emerging markets, the number of head exported, any allegations and breaches, and any sanctions or other actions undertaken with breaches of animal welfare standards. Why? Again, to make sure that we're ahead of the risk, providing the information and providing the data. That reporting gives the community confidence in your sector. It gets in front of the keyboard warriors and the campaign that may be going on outside. It gives the MPs the confidence to say, yes, but this is the report that's been tabled, this is the action that the industry is taking, and I've been out onto the properties, I've met the producers, I've met the farmers, and they truly and honestly do respect their animals and do really believe in animal welfare. In the time that I have left, I also just wanted to acknowledge a few of the other policy challenges in your sector. Whilst animal welfare continues to be the area of most focus in terms of politics, Labor acknowledges that there are other challenges facing your sector and other sectors. Ag, technology, infrastructure, the desperate need for connectivity in agricultural industries, the role of water and having sustainable, reliable water policy, the effects of climate change, the effects of drought, particularly on herd size, non-trade tariff barriers. And this is where Labor has just recently made an announcement through Jason Clare, our Trade Minister, that Labor and government will establish and bring together into one area a team that is dedicated in negotiating and addressing non-tariff trade barriers, particularly in the Asian markets. Energy and power prices, ongoing concern, one of the biggest risk factors to all agricultural industries. For us, it's not good enough just to have a national energy guarantee that today's prices are the guarantee going forward. That's not good policy. That just guarantees higher power bills for the immediate future and medium future. What Labor has said through Mark Butler, our Shadow Minister for Energy, and continues to say is that the Prime Minister should exercise his rights with the export control triggers, trigger them, and actually reserve some of our gas for domestic use. Give our industries the supply and energy that they need. Energy is becoming an increasing risk across your sector as well as others. Meeting with JBS last week, they said their biggest fear come Christmas, come January, come February, is that the lights go out, the power goes out, and they've got stock left on the chain. What do they do if they don't have ongoing secure gas and energy? Maintaining a skilled workforce, an ongoing challenge for the agricultural industry, including in your own, the competition for skilled labour, encouraging people to move out to the regions, to live in the regions and stay. And of course, the final one I wanted to touch on is supply chain competition, the competition with domestic meat processing sector. And I do flag this in a very genuine way. There is a growing concern, a growing narrative out there that there is competition with the domestic meat processing sector and the impact that your sector may be having on domestic processing. That is why Labor, in opposition, has established a roundtable where we brought together people that were in this room with the domestic meat processing sector, with industry stakeholders, with the unions, to actually talk frankly, is it true? Is there an impact? Evidence-based, fact-based discussion to then inform policy frameworks and policy for the long term. That's the kind of bipartisanship that we're willing to offer if it's based upon policy, if it's based upon facts, if it's sound and sensible and will deliver certainty and security, but also meets stakeholders' expectations in terms of animal welfare, particularly in your sector. Not blind bipartisanship, but bipartisanship that's based on sound and good policy. We don't know what the next few months holds in terms of federal politics. We don't know what the next 2 years holds. We go back in the lower house in 2 weeks' time. We do now have a situation of a minority government, and the Prime Minister is your acting agricultural minister. What we do know is that if we continue to focus on the policy and less on the politics, we might be able to ensure that we get best practice going forward. Thank you very much.